There is a specific kind of man who reaches a certain point in his life and begins to disappear. Not physically. He still exists. He still works. He still moves through the world. But socially, something shifts. The group chats go quiet. The invitations stop being accepted. The phone calls become shorter, then less frequent, then stop entirely. From the outside, people notice. They say he changed. They say he became cold. They say something must have happened to him. But here is what they do not understand. Nothing happened to him. Something happened within him. He stopped pretending that most relationships were worth the energy they demanded. He stopped performing availability for people who offered nothing but distraction. He stopped mistaking social busyness for meaningful connection. Robert Greene wrote in the 48 Laws of Power, "Use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim." But there is a corollary principle he implies throughout the book that most readers miss. Use selective absence to reclaim your power. The high-value man understands something that average men do not. Attention is the most valuable currency you possess. Every moment spent on people who do not elevate you is a moment stolen from your mission, your growth, and your peace. This is not loneliness. This is strategic solitude. This is not antisocial behavior. This is psychological sovereignty. Niccolo Machiavelli understood this in the 15th century. He wrote that a prince must learn when to be present and when to withdraw, because constant availability breeds contempt, while strategic absence creates mystique and power. Carl Jung understood this. He wrote extensively about individuation, the process by which a man separates from the collective expectations of society in order to discover and integrate his authentic self. Jung argued that most people never individuate. They remain psychologically fused with the crowd, terrified of the isolation that true selfhood requires. The men who cut everyone off are not running from something. They are running toward something, toward clarity, toward focus, toward a version of themselves that cannot exist in the noise of meaningless social obligation. But here is what they do not teach you. There is a difference between wounded withdrawal and strategic separation. There is a difference between a man who isolates because he was hurt and a man who isolates because he has evolved beyond the need for constant external validation. One is running, the other is building. By the end of this video, you will understand the psychology behind both. You will learn the 5 stages of strategic separation. You will see why high-value men guard their solitude like treasure. And you will learn how to audit your own social circle using the same ruthless criteria that the most successful men in history have always used. This is the dark psychology of social selection. Let us begin. Before we go further, I need to make a distinction that most psychology content ignores. There are 2 types of men who cut everyone off. They look identical from the outside, but psychologically, they are completely different. The first type is the wounded withdrawer. This man isolates because he was hurt. He trusted, and that trust was betrayed. He gave, and no one gave back. He opened himself, and what he received was abandonment, rejection, or indifference. So he built walls, not strategically, reflexively. His nervous system learned that connection equals pain, and it adapted by shutting down the circuits that allow connection to happen. The wounded withdrawer feels relief when he is alone. But it is the relief of avoidance, not the relief of peace. Underneath the quiet, there is still longing. There is still the hope that someone will break through. There is still the pain of what he wanted, but never received. This is not sovereignty. This is a scar masquerading as a strategy. The second type is the strategic separator. This man isolates because he has done the math. He has evaluated his relationships against his goals, his energy, and his time. He has asked the question that most people are too afraid to ask: what am I actually getting from these connections? And when the answer is not enough, he does what high-value men do. He reallocates his resources. The strategic separator does not feel relief when he is alone. He feels power. He feels the return of energy that was being drained by obligations that served no purpose. He feels the clarity that comes when the noise stops. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote about this in Thus Spoke Zarathustra. He described the process of becoming the Übermensch, the man who transcends the herd morality of ordinary society. Nietzsche understood that this transcendence requires separation. You cannot become what you are meant to become while you are constantly surrounded by people who are committed to remaining what they have always been. The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. That is Nietzsche, and it is the operating principle of every high-value man who has ever chosen solitude over social conformity. But here is where it gets complicated. Most men who isolate are a mixture of both types. They have genuine wounds from past betrayals, and they have genuine strategic reasons for withdrawal. The question is not, which one are you? The question is, which one is driving your decisions? If you are isolating primarily from pain, you will eventually need to heal. The solitude is a cocoon, not a destination. Staying in the cocoon forever is not transformation. It is stagnation. If you are isolating primarily from strategy, you have already begun the process of psychological sovereignty. The solitude is a tool, not a refuge. You can enter and exit it at will. The way to know the difference is simple. Ask yourself, could I re-enter if I wanted to? The wounded withdrawer feels trapped in his isolation. The thought of reconnecting triggers anxiety, dread, or exhaustion. His walls are not guarded. They are locked from the inside. The strategic separator feels free in his isolation. He could reconnect tomorrow if he chose to. He simply chooses not to, because his current allocation of energy is producing better results than his previous one. This distinction matters because the rest of this video is for strategic separators, or for wounded withdrawers who are ready to transform their unconscious retreat into conscious strategy. If you are still in the wound, that is not a judgment. Wounds heal, but they heal faster when you name them honestly instead of disguising them as philosophy. Let us continue. High-value men do not isolate randomly. They follow principles, sometimes consciously, sometimes instinctively. After studying the biographies, writings, and behaviors of men who achieved exceptional results in their fields, I have identified 5 laws that govern strategic separation. These are not suggestions. They are operating principles. Violate them, and your isolation becomes imprisonment. Follow them, and your solitude becomes power. Law 1. Guard your attention like your life depends on it, because it does. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "Never value anything as profitable that compels you to break your promise. Lose your self-respect. Hate any man, suspect, curse, act the hypocrite, or desire anything that needs walls or curtains. Attention is the foundation of accomplishment." Every great achievement in human history was produced by someone who protected their attention from distraction. Most social interactions are attention thieves. They offer nothing but the illusion of connection while draining the resource you need most. The high-value man understands this. He treats his attention like an investor treats capital. He does not spend it casually. He does not waste it on low-return relationships. He allocates it strategically toward people, projects, and purposes that compound over time. When you cut off relationships that drain your attention, you are not being cold. You are being economically rational, with your most scarce resource. Law 2. Proximity is permission. Robert Greene wrote, "Infection. Avoid the unhappy and unlucky. The unfortunate sometimes draw misfortune on themselves. They will also draw it on you. The people you allow into your inner circle are not passive presences. They are active influences. Their mindsets, habits, beliefs, and behaviors seep into you through proximity. This is not metaphor. This is neuroscience. Mirror neurons in your brain fire when you observe others' behaviors, creating unconscious imitation. Emotional contagion spreads moods and attitudes like pathogens. The average of the 5 people you spend the most time with is not a cliché, it is a psychological reality. High-value men understand that allowing someone into their space is granting them permission to influence who they become. This is why the standards are high. This is why most people do not qualify. This is why the circle shrinks as the man rises. It is not arrogance. It is protection. Law 3. Solitude is the laboratory of self-mastery. Every great thinker, leader, and creator in history spent significant time alone. Not because they could not find company, but because they understood that certain kinds of growth are only possible in isolation. Carl Jung retreated to Bollingen Tower, a stone structure he built with his own hands, specifically to have a space for solitary reflection. He called it his place for confrontation with the unconscious. Nikola Tesla famously isolated himself for extended periods, claiming that solitude was essential to his creative process. Seneca wrote, "To be everywhere is to be nowhere." The high-value man uses solitude as a laboratory. It is where he experiments with ideas, confronts his shadow, develops his vision, and builds the internal architecture that will support his external achievements. Social time is maintenance. Solitary time is construction. Law 4. The crowd cannot take you where you are going. Machiavelli observed that popular opinion is fickle, irrational, and ultimately irrelevant to achieving great things. The crowd rewards conformity and punishes deviation, but all exceptional outcomes require deviation. If your goals are exceptional, the crowd cannot help you reach them. At best, the crowd is neutral. At worst, the crowd is an anchor, dragging you back toward the mean every time you attempt to rise above it. High-value men recognize this early. They stop seeking crowd approval not because they are antisocial, but because crowd approval and exceptional achievement are mutually exclusive. The man who needs everyone to like him will never build anything that matters. The man who can tolerate being misunderstood, criticized, and alone has the psychological freedom to attempt what others cannot. Law 5. Strategic absence creates value. This is perhaps the most counterintuitive law. In a world that rewards visibility, constant presence, and aggressive self-promotion, the high-value man does the opposite. He disappears, not permanently, not completely, but deliberately. Robert Greene's Law 16 states, "Use absence to increase respect and honor." Too much circulation makes the price go down. When you are always available, you are taken for granted. When you are selectively absent, you become valuable. This applies to business, to relationships, and to social dynamics. The high-value man understands the economics of attention. He knows that scarcity creates demand. He knows that strategic withdrawal increases his perceived value more than constant presence ever could. This is not manipulation. This is understanding how human psychology actually works, and using that understanding strategically. These 5 laws are the foundation of strategic separation. In the next segment, I will show you how to apply them through a process I call the social audit. Knowing the laws is not enough. You must apply them. And the first step is evaluating your current social circle with ruthless honesty. I call this process the social audit. Most men have never done this. They accumulate relationships passively, through proximity, circumstance, and social inertia. They keep connections that no longer serve them simply because ending them feels uncomfortable. The social audit changes this. It forces you to evaluate every significant relationship in your life against clear criteria. Here is how it works. Step 1. List every person you regularly interact with. Not just close friends. Everyone. The colleague you talk to every morning. The friend from college you text occasionally. The family members you see at holidays. The online communities you engage with. Write them down. Every single one. Step 2. Evaluate each relationship against 3 questions. Question 1. Does this person elevate me or drain me? After interacting with this person, do you feel energized or depleted? Do you feel inspired or discouraged? Do you feel clear or confused? Some people are energetic upgrades. Being around them makes you sharper, more motivated, more capable. Other people are energetic downgrades. Being around them leaves you tired, frustrated, or smaller than before. Be honest. The answer is usually obvious when you pay attention. Question 2. Does this relationship serve my current mission? Your mission changes as you evolve. The relationships that served your old mission may not serve your current one. This is not betrayal. This is alignment. The high-value man constantly realigns his resources, including his relationships, with his current objectives. Ask yourself, does this person understand where I am going? Do they support it? Are they capable of helping me get there? Or are they connected to a version of me that no longer exists? Question 3. Would I choose this relationship today if I met this person now? This question eliminates social inertia. Many relationships persist simply because they already exist, not because they would be chosen if they had to be chosen again. Imagine you met this person for the first time tomorrow. Knowing what you know about them now, would you pursue a relationship? Would you invest your time and attention? Would you allow them into your circle? If the answer is no, you are keeping a relationship out of obligation, not value. Step 3. Categorize each relationship. Based on your answers, place each relationship into one of 4 categories. Category A. Inner circle. These people elevate you, serve your mission, and you would choose them again without hesitation. Protect these relationships. Invest in them. They are rare. Category B. Maintained distance. These people are neutral or slightly positive, but do not belong in your inner circle. You can maintain surface-level contact without deep investment. Category C. Deliberate reduction. These people drain you, oppose your mission, or you would not choose again. Begin reducing contact intentionally. You do not owe them an explanation. Category D. Complete removal. These people are toxic, destructive, or actively harmful to your progress. Cut contact entirely. Protect your energy without apology. Step 4. Act on your audit. This is where most men fail. They do the audit, but do not execute. Execution does not require confrontation. It requires strategic withdrawal. You do not need to announce your decisions. You do not need to explain yourself. You simply become less available. Stop initiating. Stop responding immediately. Stop accepting invitations. Stop performing friendship for people who do not deserve it. The relationships that matter will survive your reduced effort. The relationships that do not matter will quietly fade, which is exactly what should happen. The social audit is uncomfortable. It forces you to confront relationships you have been maintaining out of guilt, obligation, or fear. But this discomfort is the price of sovereignty. The man who cannot prune his social garden will be strangled by weeds. There is something that most personal development content will not tell you. The reason high-value men guard their solitude so fiercely is not just about energy management or strategic positioning. It is about identity protection. Every relationship you maintain shapes who you are becoming. Every person you allow into your inner world leaves a psychological residue. Their expectations become your obligations. Their limitations become your ceilings. Their perceptions become your self-image. Carl Jung wrote extensively about the concept of projection. People do not see you as you are. They see you as they need you to be, filtered through their own fears, desires, and psychological needs. When you allow too many people access to your identity, you become a collage of their projections. You lose clarity about who you actually are because you are constantly managing who they expect you to be. The high-value man cuts people off to protect his psychological autonomy, the ability to define himself on his own terms rather than through the distorted mirror of others' perceptions. This is what Nietzsche meant when he wrote about becoming who you are. You cannot become who you are while you are constantly performing someone else's version of you. Seneca said it directly. To lose a friend is to lose part of oneself. But he meant this as a caution, not a sentiment. He was warning that over-connection fragments the self. When you are deeply enmeshed with many people, you are not one person. You are many people, each version slightly different depending on who you are with. This fragmentation drains energy. It creates internal contradiction. It prevents the unified sense of purpose that exceptional achievement requires. Strategic separation is not antisocial. It is pro-self. It is the decision to stop fragmenting your identity across dozens of relationships and to consolidate it into a coherent, powerful, autonomous whole. There is also a practical dimension. Every relationship carries maintenance costs, time for conversations, energy for emotional support, cognitive bandwidth for remembering details, managing expectations, and navigating social dynamics. These costs are invisible until you add them up. The average person maintains 150 to 200 relationships at various levels of closeness. This is Dunbar's number, the cognitive limit on meaningful social connections. But high-value men typically maintain far fewer, not because they cannot handle more, but because they have calculated the costs and decided the returns are not worth it. A man with 200 relationships is spreading his relational investment across 200 accounts, most of which pay 0 dividends. A man with 20 carefully selected relationships can invest deeply in each one and receive compounding returns. This is portfolio theory applied to human connection. Diversification reduces risk but also reduces returns. Concentration increases risk but enables exceptional outcomes. The high-value man concentrates his relational portfolio. He accepts the risk of having fewer connections in exchange for the depth and power of connections that actually matter. I must address something important before we conclude. Strategic separation is a phase, not a permanent destination. The man who isolates forever is not powerful. He is trapped. True psychological sovereignty includes the ability to reconnect, not from neediness, but from choice. The goal is not to become a hermit. The goal is to develop the ability to enter and exit social engagement on your own terms, to be alone when solitude serves you, to connect when connection serves you, to never feel compelled by loneliness or obligation, but to act always from strategic choice. This is what I call the return protocol, the process by which the strategic separator re-enters social engagement without losing the gains he made in isolation. Principle 1. Return from abundance, not scarcity. The wounded withdrawer returns because he cannot stand being alone anymore. His loneliness breaks him. He re-enters social engagement desperate, needy, and willing to accept low-quality relationships just to escape the emptiness. The strategic separator returns because he has completed a phase of development and is ready to share what he has built. He re-enters from fullness, not emptiness. He has something to offer, not something to beg for. Before you return, ask yourself, am I returning because I have grown, or because I cannot tolerate my own company? If it is the latter, you are not ready. Stay in the laboratory. The work is not done. Principle 2. Return to new, not old. One of the biggest mistakes men make after a period of isolation is returning to the same relationships they left. This rarely works. You have changed. They have not. The dynamics that made you leave in the first place are still present. Within weeks, you will feel the same drain, the same frustration, the same pull toward withdrawal. When you return to new relationships that align with who you have become, not old relationships that are connected to who you used to be. This may sound cold. It is. But it is also honest. Growth often requires outgrowing, and outgrowing means leaving behind. Principle 3. Return with standards, not hope. The wounded withdrawer returns hoping things will be different. Hope is passive. Hope surrenders control to circumstance and wishes for favorable outcomes. The strategic separator returns with standards. He knows exactly what he requires from a relationship. He knows exactly what he will not tolerate. He enters every social engagement with criteria already established. This is not arrogance. This is self-respect operationalized. The man who does not know his standards will accept whatever he is given. The man who knows his standards will accept only what he deserves. Before you return, define your standards explicitly. What kind of person qualifies for your inner circle? What behaviors are automatic disqualifiers? What must someone offer before you invest your time and attention? Write these down. Memorize them. Enforce them without exception. Principle 4. Return prepared to leave again. The strategic separator never fully returns in the sense of abandoning his capacity for solitude. He maintains the option of withdrawal at all times. This is not paranoia. This is power. When you can leave any relationship at any time without emotional devastation, you engage from strength instead of dependency. You give because you choose to, not because you need to. You stay because the relationship serves you, not because you fear being alone. The man who cannot leave is controlled by whoever he is with. The man who can always leave is controlled by no one. We return now to where we began. There is a specific kind of man who reaches a certain point and begins to disappear. The world calls him cold. The world calls him antisocial. The world asks what happened to him. But you now understand what actually happened. He stopped accepting relationships that cost more than they returned. He stopped fragmenting his identity across dozens of projections. He stopped performing availability for people who offered nothing but distraction. He began the process of psychological sovereignty. He learned that solitude is not loneliness. It is the laboratory where self-mastery is forged. He learned that strategic absence creates more value than constant presence. He learned that the crowd cannot take him where he is going. He conducted his social audit. He categorized his relationships with ruthless honesty. He acted on what he discovered, not with confrontation, but with strategic withdrawal. And when the work was complete, when he had built what needed to be built in solitude, he returned. Not from neediness, from abundance. Not to old connections, to new ones. Not with hope, with standards. This is the psychology they do not teach, not because it is hidden, but because most people are not ready to hear it. Most people need to believe that more connections are better, that loneliness is always bad, that the man who cuts everyone off has something wrong with him. But you now know the truth. The man who cuts everyone off may be wounded, or he may be building something that requires protection from distraction. The man who guards his solitude may be running from pain, or he may be running toward a version of himself that cannot exist in the noise. The question is not whether isolation is good or bad. The question is whether your isolation is serving you or trapping you. If it is serving you, if you are building, growing, becoming, then protect it fiercely. The world will not understand. The world does not need to understand. The world's approval is irrelevant to men who have transcended the need for it. If it is trapping you, if you are hiding rather than building, then it is time to heal the wound. Not to return to the crowd that cannot help you, but to resolve what remains unresolved so that your withdrawal becomes strategic instead of reflexive. This is the path of the high-value man. Selective, strategic, sovereign. The psychology they do not teach. Until now.